I've been looking forward to this interview because your music, it took me way back to that period, the 80s and the 90s, where, or late 80s, where I didn't have responsibilities. You know, I could really enjoy life at that time. But before we get started, I'll introduce myself. I'm the runner. I've been doing this now for a little over 2 years interviewing, but I've had my station. I started in 2006, and then life happened, so I rebooted. But this is something I do voluntarily on my own time. I enjoy it because I love the music. So if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll just have a casual interview. I don't have a list of questions. It's Sunday. I like to relax and enjoy these interviews. So go ahead.
Fine. Well, I'm Eric Stein, and I am the singer and a few other things with the band Cult No Name. And we started, well, I mean, we can do that in the interview, I guess, in terms of our story, but yeah, that's who I am.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining the Skype interview. And it's like I could go all over the place with questions with you, but one, how did you find me? Because you reached out directly to me, I believe, and I'm just curious how you found my station.
Well, we're always kind of looking out for stations that might kind of like what we do, and maybe one thing that we look out for is, of course, stations that support bands that are similar in genre.
Sure.
So I saw a post, I can't remember which band it was, a post listing various stations, thanking them for playing their music. I had to dig it out, and I thought, okay, well, I have to check out these different stations. And there are a couple that interested me more than others,
sure.
And THERUNNER was one of them, actually, particularly because yours is a little bit more diverse, I think,
sure.
Than some of the other, because you're not strictly kind of synthesizer electronic,
right.
wearing black leather trousers and all that sort of stuff, which is not really my scene. So I thought maybe you'd quite like what we do, and lucky you do. Thank you very much, by the way. You've been playing us loads. Every time I go on Twitter, it's like, oh wow, THERUNNER's been playing us.
Well, it's fun to me, and I can program the music. And sometimes, because I was thinking, I'll do blocks periodically, but you sent me your first, the Air of the Dog, and I love the song When I Was a Girl. That video was fantastic. We'll get into that. But then you sent me some more MP3s, and I really enjoyed them. And I believe I have some loaded in the electronic music segment as well, and the alternative. And so it's like, it seems to me that these bands, the post-punk bands, they're looking for a medium to play their music, because no one's really playing that anymore. And I love it. And as you sent me yours, and I have so much of it now. And I get excited every time I get it. But no, I'm glad that you found comfort in the station. Let me ask you, how do you pronounce your partner's last name?
It's actually, without telling you, no one would ever guess this. It's actually pronounced Books.
Books, okay.
Books, yeah.
Got it.
Most people say Boo.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say Books, but it's Books.
Books, got it.
French.
Yep. Okay.
French name.
So how long have you known John Books? How long have you all been working together?
Well, I've known him for 20 years, nearly 20 years now. Back in the days when we had no responsibilities, and we met working actually in a music store. So HMV, I don't know if you even have HMV in America.
No.
Okay, well, it's a big music chain. Well, it was a big music chain. Now it kind of just sells DVDs, right? And we were, working there, and I was actually managing the jazz section, and John was managing the classical section. And of course, everyone that worked there, like anyone that works in a record shop, no one's there for a career.
Sure.
And so they're all frustrated musicians and actors and all sorts of stuff. So he was already he just finished with a band actually that kind of imploded, and he'd started up a couple other bands. I'd always been doing music on my own, right from when I was a teenager. And then we were friends, and then a few years down the line, quite a few years down the line actually, we decided to then start doing stuff together. So we were, well, still are, but we were friends first for several years before we even started making music together. And it took a bit of luck in the sense of the bands that John was in ended again
Sure.
for different reasons, the duos. And I was kind of, you know, I wanted to be a kind of solo artist, but I'm not good enough for that. I need help, you know.
Sure.
I write a lot of songs, but I'm not really a skilled enough musician to do it all on my own. And as with all good duos and partnerships, you know, the bits that I can't do well, John can do really well, and vice versa. So 2003 is when we started actually making music together.
Oh, wow.
And then the first album was 2007 that came out. So yeah, quite a journey. It's weird when you look back and all that stuff. Just today I found an old scrap of paper from a gig we did we did a soundtrack years ago for the film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this kind of sheet of when we performed it live. I mean, that must be about 8 years old. It's just kind of in a drawer. So it's weird, the kind of the stuff that you discover.
So have you all been able to sustain using your music, or do you work together part-time, and do you have a full-time gig?
We can't. I admire anyone that manages to carve a career
Sure.
just making music, and no, we don't fully sustain ourselves from making music yet.
Sure.
But you know, we're working on it.
I was just curious because your music and your direction is it's very good. And, oh yeah, it's, you know, because when you sent the video over, the YouTube video, When I Was a Girl, yeah, I put it on upstairs and I was making dinner or something, and the video was very creative, and it does remind you of that creativity back during the 80s. It was more or less, it was like an unorthodox production that captured your attention, and like it draws you in. It's not just, you know, some guy blinging with some girl on his arm, you know, dancing around in front of cars and things. And your video production is very good. And I wanted to ask you, in a lot of your videos, you've got some video clips of old movies or footage of something. So explain, for those listening, this is Cult with No Name, but tell me, where did that idea come from? Because it suits you very well.
The old footage.
Just the creativity behind your videos.
Okay, well, there's sort of two separate stories really. So I mean, firstly, the When I Was a Girl video, we worked with a filmmaker for that. He approached us, a good friend of mine called Roger Spy, and not his real name. But he is a really brilliant filmmaker, and has been for a number of years. Still very young. I mean, he's still very young, but he's a very, very creative filmmaker. And he, as well as being a friend, is a fan of our music. You know, he DJs and plays us and all the rest of it. So he wanted to do a video. It was his idea to do When I Was a Girl. He had a real idea for it. He had a storyboard for it. Mm-hmm. One of the things I liked about it was he referenced an artist actually in his storyboard for the video, which I'm a big fan of as well. He's not a particularly well-known artist, a guy called John Stezaker. Mm-hmm. If you look him up on the internet, Stezaker, John Stezaker. Fantastic artist. And you can see the references to his kind of stuff in what Roger Spy does there. So we handed that all over to him really, and that was his brilliance in editing and making that video. I had a bit of input in terms of the quotes that are at the end. So that's him. And then the other stuff, the old footage, there's two reasons really. Partly it's important to have stuff on YouTube. Yes. Even if you can't do a full-scale kind of video production like we did with When I Was a Girl, it's important to have a presence on YouTube, because I read, it might not be the case anymore, that 40% of music gets listened to through YouTube still.
Agreed.
I mean, that's probably a bit different with Spotify and stuff like that now, but you should have as much stuff on YouTube as possible. So rather than just putting the track up with nothing, and there are a few times we've done that with just as the name of the track.
Sure.
Why not try and do something a bit interesting? And it was actually our old record company that introduced me to something called archive.org, which is a massive online database of all public domain videos, music, audio recordings, all sorts of stuff. And it's just a wonderful treasure trove of really weird stuff, you know, really old B movies.
Oh yeah.
You know, old weird B movies, old kind of government information films, mainly American. And that's where we get all that stuff from. So we did recently we did a video for a song called I Don't Fear the Reaper, Just Don't Want to Meet Her, which is from the last album. And I found this old B movie which was called Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women. You could find on archive.org. It was just this crazy, mad old B movie from the 60s. And you could download the whole thing for free.
And
then chop it up.
What's it called?
Archive.org is, I'm giving away all our secrets, but archive.org is, I really recommend.
Say it again, another pen.
So that's where it all comes from, all those old clips.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious.
It started off as just kind of a thing to do, but like you say, it's become a kind of, become associated with us a bit, and it's become a bit of a kind of an aesthetic, bit of a look kind of stuff we do, so we'll just keep on going.
I enjoyed. I actually, I obviously played it on YouTube upstairs, and I played the playlist.
Yeah.
And I was able to see, you know, so I thought that was very creative.
Thank you.
And I mean, it garnered my attention. So,
Yeah.
How long have you lived in London?
I've lived here all my life. I was actually born in Germany.
Okay.
And my family are German, and I'm German in terms of nationality.
Sure.
But I grew up. My parents were both already living in London. So I grew up in kind of northwest London. John and I went to university even in London as well, college and stuff. So I've always lived in London. John, his upbringing is an interesting one, you know, because his parents actually live in Dubai, in the United States, in the UAE.
Yeah.
But he went to a boarding school, which kind of looked like Hogwarts from the pictures that I've seen from Harry Potter.
Uh-huh.
And he went to a very strict Catholic boarding school and had a very interesting upbringing. And that's kind of how he got into his music as well. Because he had a lot of religious music and a lot of kind of church music and that sort of stuff.
Now, is that the orchestral part of the group?
I would say so, yeah, because we'll probably come on to influences, but I don't really listen to any kind of classical or orchestral music really very much. Not even soundtracks, to be honest, very much.
Interesting.
I like quite a lot of heavy music, actually, a lot of punk music, a lot of heavy electronic stuff,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of weird stuff as well. John, he, amongst other things, he likes a lot of classical music. He's just recently bought a turntable. He's buying loads and loads of classical vinyl, you know, which is really funny because you have the image of people getting all these kind of old kind of funk and soul records. And and he's getting all this kind of, you know, I'm in a record shop with him. He's like, wow, look at this Elgar, you know, look at this Elgar. And so he's buying up all this old classical vinyl, and a lot of that influence, that classical influence, definitely comes from John and the music he listens to, and the slightly more eccentric stuff, perhaps if that's the right word, comes from me.
Well,
so.
I really think that the orchestral sound, you don't really hear a lot of it.
Yeah.
Mixed with electronic, it's very creative, and I'm very excited to see what else you guys come up with, because you could really start something, and it's very interesting to listen to it with that electronic vibe and the vocals. The vocals are really good, by the way. Yeah, they're really good, and it's just a refreshing sound to hear.
Yeah.
You know, especially with everything else that we hear today. I think your sound is one of there are a few artists from that era that have sent me their music, and I'm just like, wow, I'm so glad you guys are bringing this back.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear, and it's by accident. Partly, you don't really go into things we didn't too consciously in terms of developing a sound, and that's just kind of how it developed. And then when people tell you, oh, your sound is quite unique, or I really like that sound, we're like, oh, really? Okay, well, let's just carry on with that. I mean, one thing we haven't done much of is change the way that we work. We work very much the same that we always have done 14 years ago, and that seems to work, and as long as we can keep coming up with the goods in terms of me coming up with decent songs and melodies and stuff, and John coming up with the atmospheres, and together we work on the production and stuff, then we'll keep pushing ourselves. Well, certainly, we're quite prolific. We're always keen to get stuff out there. I mean, we've done 10 albums now, so that's nice. And having the opportunity to do the soundtracks, we've done a couple of soundtracks now, which has been great fun as well. So,
well, let me ask you something for for people out there that are trying to get into the soundtrack, the cinema arena, if you will.
Yeah.
What is the path? What's that path? How do you what path do you take to get there?
Well, it's difficult. It depends on, I think, on the individual artist. I mean, we were lucky in terms of, like with so many things these days, it was who you know, and not just who you know, because we did I don't know if you read up, but we did a soundtrack to a film called Blue Velvet Revisited. So this was a friend of ours that worked with David Lynch in the 80s, and was on the set of the film Blue Velvet, and filmed lots of footage and interviewed Dennis Hopper, and he was there the whole time, the whole making the film. He had all this unused footage, and he made a new film called Blue Velvet Revisited, and he asked us to do the music, not just because he was a friend of ours, but because he thought our music was a perfect fit. He was actually listening to a track from one of our albums and said, this is perfect for the trailer. And so you can actually see that online, the original trailer proposal he did, and he got some money for it. The rest is history, and now the film's been around the world, and David Lynch has even premiered it in America, and so that was amazing. But that is a bit kind of who you know in terms of context.
Sure.
But I would say you've got a lot of budding musicians that want to do soundtrack music, and you've got a lot of really budding creative filmmakers out there. So you just got to find these brilliant filmmakers like Roger Spy, though he doesn't need our help, and make music for them. Go find a filmmaker that you like, I think, and a style that you like, and just go for it. Right? I mean, we were really, really lucky with the soundtrack we did, because also the footage, the Blue Velvet Revisited, it was all silent music. It was silent footage because he filmed it using an old Super 8 camera, which doesn't have any sound, right? So he recorded lots of interviews as well. So he said to us, I want the music first. Normally with a soundtrack, 90% of the time, the music is the last thing you do. But he said, I want you to just make an album, and then I'm going to edit the footage to the music. So we just made an album with friends of ours, with a band called Tuxedo Moon, who are an American band, and John Fox, a guy called John Fox contributed, who's a very well-known electronic musician. And so we just made an album, and he not only edited all the music, edited all the film footage to the music, he did it in kind of the suites that follow the tracks. If you view the film, it's the album, not in order, but the album tracks are on the soundtrack, but he just did it that way. So it was a joy. I don't think all soundtracks are as easy in inverted commas as that. I know a few soundtrack composers, and they have difficulties when you have a director that says, I need you to make this 2 minutes 20 seconds, I want you to make that note a little bit louder, or I want it to be faster but slower, or I want it to be, So we were lucky.
Sure.
But certainly we would have to do more soundtracks. But I think just find a filmmaker whose films you like. Possible advice I can give.
No, that's well, let me ask you this. What do you think about like when you talk about a movie and a soundtrack? Now you have all this software now, so you can literally dump the movie into the soundtrack in the software, and you can make those edits. I think one of the Transformers movies was all done in a software program. The music soundtrack. What are your thoughts? because I see you've got some keyboards back there, you have some equipment. What are your thoughts about the Logics, the Logic Pros? And
Well, I think there's two different sides to it. There's the music production side and there's the performing live side. And from a music production side, firstly, that's not quite true saying I've not known any different, because obviously when I was a teenager and stuff, and actually into my early 20s, I was doing music with little 4-track tape recorders, and I quite like that kind of organic, physical process.
Yes.
But you can't argue that it's great to be able to do everything just
in one. Yep.
With the case of me and John, we ping files back and forth. He lives very near me anyway, so it's not a problem. We go around to each other's houses and stuff. But they talk about how it's democratized music and it's made accessible to everyone, and it has.
Yep.
Because when the first thing for electronic music, the first synthesizers, of course, there was a reason why only prog rock bands were using synthesizers in the 70s. There were only people that could afford them,
Exactly.
And now you've got everything at your fingertips. I mean, there's almost too much choice, which is a difficulty. But if you've got the skills to wade through the million and one loops, then you can create some amazing stuff.
It's a matter of patience, knowing where the loops are, where to find them. But there's some really good creativity out there. And I have to say, this DJ, he just signed a contract, a gentleman in Amsterdam. One of his songs that he made, I didn't realize he used Ableton, because I think I started with Reason, okay, and Reason's an old program, right? Well, exactly, but Ableton was free with Reason. Remember? You got a little disc? And so now there are people making millions using Ableton and Fruity Loops. So anyway, it's always interesting to get one of the old school opinions that have actually write their music and actually use hardware. And not to knock. Wait, so are you married? Do you have kids?
Yep.
Awesome.
No, I don't have kids, but I'm married now. Yeah. Nearly 5 years.
Oh, nice. Okay, congrats. I've been married 22 years. And my wife supports everything I do. Okay, so I like.
You use it as well? You play
Well, I don't. What I've done is I've made so much music, and I put it on. I don't know if you're familiar with SoundClick. When SoundClick started years ago, I think it's still out there. And then, oh my gosh, where else do I have it? I had it on InternetDJ.com, and then I think they shut down. But I started with Reason, and then I went to Logic. I did some Ableton. My first album, I used Ableton. And but mine's all electronic, and I just like being creative. But I don't have time anymore. I just don't. I start tracks, and then maybe a year later I go back. But I haven't really pursued, the career. The one album I had was called Electronic Orgasm. I think it's on Napster. It's out there because I published it, but that's it. I've got some songs on YouTube, but mainly I wanted to focus on interviewing the artists that I play on the station. I just thought it was like a value add for the artists, and just to create a platform for the indie artists that aren't being heard on the Spotifys of the world, mainstream. I've never been a mainstream guy. I always I like really good electronic, indie type music. I love alternative rock, indie rock. I like immersing myself in it. And it helps me relax. So what do you do to relax, and what books have you read, or any books that and it doesn't have to be music related, but what do you recommend as far as a good read, and how do you relax, and where do you vacation? What do you do?
Well, relax. I like I don't know if making music does relax me in some ways. It irritates me as well, but I'm restless until I get a song finished or going.
Sure.
It's a bit like that old quote that something doesn't exist until you write it down. So if I've written a song, I think I've got to record this before it disappears, or I forget, or I get run over or something. So I'm always working on music. I like running a lot, trying to keep fit. I'm into cooking quite a bit now.
Excellent.
In terms of vacation and going on holiday, I'm lucky being in Europe. Obviously, we're lucky that we're so close. I was in Vienna last weekend. I was in Lisbon about a month ago. Going to France in a month. Going to Germany twice in October. So,
excellent.
And that's just holidays. That's not even gigs. So it's great for gigging as well.
Sure.
We can go across and do gigs in Central Europe where they treat you a lot better than they do in the UK. That's for sure.
Oh, that's excellent.
So yeah, I will vacate. I have been further. I mean, I've been to the US a few times. Been on a few adventures. Been to India, Costa Rica, Vietnam, Cuba.
Oh wow. Okay.
A few places like amazing. Yeah. Trinidad and Tobago. Into. So yeah, that's kind of how I relax really. But I do like to keep going with the music and do it as much as possible.
What about your favorite books? What do you recommend as a good read?
The books. So it's funny because you said it doesn't have to be music books, but actually I'm a real record collector personally.
Okay.
So about 4,000 records I got.
Wow.
And I'm really into quite obscure stuff as well, electronic synth punk, which a lot of which is American actually, from sort of late 70s, early 80s. So I'm always reading. I'm always reading a book, but it is always a music book, I have to say.
Really? Okay.
A recent one that I read, which I think you'd like as well, which I loved, is called Live Wires by a guy called Daniel Warner, I think is the author. And it's the history of electronic music, but he does it in chapters according to technology.
Really?
He starts with a chapter on tape recorders, the invention of the tape recorders. Then he goes on to circuits, then he goes on synthesizers, then he goes on to things like turntables, how turntables using hip hop and all that kind of stuff. And then he goes into sampling. So it's a fantastic book. I thought that's a genius way of structuring the history of electronic music, and it means it was very non-elitist because he was covering everything from John Cage and all this kind of experimental music concrete, as they called it in the early 20th century, to Africa Bambaataa and Dr. Dre and all kind of.
Oh, really?
It was brilliant book.
I was writing that down. I'm actually gonna buy that book when we get off from Amazon. That sounds very interesting. I like learning about the evolution of the technology. Because
you'll love it. You'll love this book because, like I said, it's themed around the technology. So he even talks about microphones.
Really?
There's even a chapter on microphones, and you think, what is there to say about microphones? But he talks about the invention of the microphone means that you could record and hear stuff you could never hear before.
Yep.
The sounds you could pick up.
Yep.
Sounds of how microphones are used to record the sounds insects make, or even this kind of stuff was really revolutionary. So, and the way people like Laurie Anderson used microphones as pickups and stuff. So, yeah, it's a really good book. Really good book.
No, I'm going to check that out. That's interesting. Wow. Okay. And it's funny you mentioned you like to bake or cook, right? I just started cooking this year, and I'm really into baking.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You have a show in the UK. We have the show called The Great British Bake Off, and it's like the biggest program on television.
Really?
Basically, when people compete, it's like kind of
Well, we take everything from you guys. We take everything. We've taken everything from the British, right? So we do have that show. It's similar. It's similar. And there is, I'm going to tell you how I got started. There is the Italian cook, young brunette. I forget her name. I don't have cable anymore. I cut the cord 2 years ago. But it's the Italian. She's an attractive young lady, and she had her own show, and just the way she would talk through making her dish really got me interested. And then I got tired of purchasing my own cookies and things from the grocery, especially after going to Amsterdam and eating the Dutch baked goods. Hands down, there was no way I could come back here and buy Chips Ahoy and be satisfied after eating Dutch baked goods. So I started baking things from scratch, and I've made anywhere from my own donuts to a strawberry cake that took me over an hour and a half to prepare.
Well, the weird thing is, I used to hate cooking, and it's only in the last 2 years that I've been cooking. And I actually get these, I don't know if you have this in the States yet, but we have these things called recipe boxes. So basically once a week, you get your exact ingredients.
Oh yeah, we have those here.
Recipes.
Yeah.
So we get 3 a week. Exact ingredients for 3 recipes, and it realized it took the stress out of cooking, because one thing I don't like is wasting food. I really hate wasting food.
Sure.
And so supermarket shopping, I never really know the quantities to get, and it's always stuff like that. So when you get the exact quantities, that really helps me. And also I realized, of course, I'm always buying records, of course. But with Bluetooth and recipe, I can listen to whatever I bought that week in the kitchen while I'm cooking.
Yep.
So I get to listen to the stuff. It's reasonably healthy, the stuff that I make. So yeah, I found it a real revelation. I mean, if you told me 2 years ago, or was it 2 years ago, that I'd be cooking, several times a week, I would have laughed in your face.
Well, I find it relaxing, and I'm baking from scratch, so I'm very impatient. Okay, so the baking from scratch, I actually have to read. Okay. And I have to slow down or I screw up, my dish. So it's really, it helps me relax more. But anyway, yeah, I've baked so many different things. It's insane. I wanted to ask you, since you really know electronic music, and there is no order in which I ask questions. Okay, so I'm all over. Do you know of the artist Ray Lynch? Ray Lynch was my very first influence in electronic music, and he started out with the very basic electronic sounds using synths and things, and a kid in my hall, I think my first year in college, had this cassette of Ray Lynch, and I kept, and I'm gonna tell you, it kind of reminds you of Doctor Who music, and it just influenced me, and I really got turned on by it. And so then I started listening to a lot of the, orchestral maneuvers in the dark, Depeche Mode, and your music reminds me of New Order.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, your vocals remind me of New Order, and it's not that you're benchmarking their sound and you sound exactly like them. It's just, it's the same feeling I get when I would listen to New Order, because I would run New Order and play the whole album, and I find myself playing your entire album, and it reminded me of New Order. And it's funny because I was in the car with my wife, and I'm like, who are these guys? I've been listening to them now for 2 weeks, and I listened to you on the airplane, and I'm like, I'm coming home this week, and I go, that's it. They sound like New Order.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's a new one. And that's
Really?
interesting for reasons, because JUN is a big New Order fan.
Really?
I'm really. But that's what's fascinating when people come up with influences that, that may be bands we listen to or not. But Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, to go back to them, they're a big shared influence. We have a lot of different influences, but they're a big shared influence. Along with another band that are completely unknown in the States and are completely unknown here, who are actually a Dutch band, who are called NITS, N-I-T-S, and they've been going 40 years, and they've done about 20 albums, and they're kind of, I wouldn't say national heroes in Holland, but they're a big cult band in the Netherlands. And I really recommend you check them out. They're a bit more acoustic, and kind of likes of OMD and stuff, but you'll hear the influence from NITS in Cult with No Name when you listen to them, definitely, and OMD. I certainly think there's a big influence there.
Yeah, I loved OMD.
Yeah,
I loved OMD. Wow. And then I think I saw, I did a little research on you, the band Scritti Politti.
Oh yeah.
Someone likened you to Scritti Politti, and I'm like,
we've been likened to everyone. I like this quote. And I've used this a lot. And this, when people really can't decide who we sound like. And 1 year, within a couple of months of each other, we had one person that said we sounded like Gary Newman.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
And then we had another guy that said we sounded like Randy.
No.
So it's just like kind of, and the fans of Gary Newman, Randy Newman.
Yeah.
So it's so random. Yeah.
Wow.
Everyone. We've had everyone.
No, that's interesting. Well, listen, the way when I edit this, I'll play music in the background, and I will cite the song.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, absolutely, and I'll let you know when it's loaded. But I had one last thing. Just bear with me.
Sure.
This is "Fly on the Wall." So these are a bunch of random songs you sent me.
Okay. Fly on the Wall is that's not a good choice.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because I wanted to know, and again, this is "Fly on the Wall," because it's not like your other music.
Yeah, but
So-
it's not. Yeah.
So how did it?
Yeah, go on.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Fly on the Wall it's not me for a start, and it's not John. The guy that it's an a cappella piece. It's
Yep.
like a poem, right? And it's a guy called Bruce Gooduldy, who is an American guy. He actually passed away 2.5 years ago now. He was in a band called Tuxedo Moon.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with a lot, and we did the soundtrack with Blue Velvet Revisited.
Right. Yep.
Who started out in San Francisco actually, and relocated to Brussels and worked from there for a long time. And I've always been a big Tuxedo Moon fan. They're another big influence, although their music is a lot less commercial
Sure.
than our stuff, I would say. Not that ours is commercial, but they're a lot more experimental. But Bruce was just a genius. His voice, the quality of his voice,
Yes.
an amazing sound to his voice, and he's an incredibly talented writer, lyricist. And we said, "Do you want to do some stuff with us? Do you want to do some spoken word of our albums?" And he said, "Sure." So in fact, he's on the album before this album. He did a piece called "Losing My Elan," which is quite an atmospheric, dark. He loved it so much. He said, "Do you want to do some more?" And this, "The Fly on the Wall," was so great. This poem, and when we edited it,
Sure.
we said we just kept it as it was. We thought it was a nice kind of scene setting track.
I listened to it while I was laying in the bed having tea after my religious episode of King of Queens, and I enjoyed it. But there's one more. Hang on.
Yeah.
There's one more. Just bear with me. That's unique.
Oh yeah.
And again, I'll be editing this. Wait, it's not that one. That's Smell Gas. Yeah. I love this right here. Let me start this over. This is not so big in Japan.
Not so big in Japan. Yeah.
This is listen. This is what I like.
Yeah.
So again, not so big in Japan. Here it is.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's do the intro.
I got these two Japanese girls to record this conversation, and they completely disappeared. They don't even have a hot copy of this record.
Really?
I lost touch with them. Yeah,
Well, let me
they
see.
just vanished. They didn't even know
It's
they're on this record.
oh my God! Really?
Yeah, there's a video. Have you seen the video? There's a great video for this as well.
Oh, hold on.
A friend of ours, Mali, who's another brilliant filmmaker, Malina. She lived in Japan for about 3 months, and she shot this amazing video for Not So Big in Japan, so you can see that on YouTube. But the story behind this song is there's quite a lot of, and I hope that comes across, a bit of humour in what we do, dark humour. I think the best humour is always kind of deadpan, and it's a running joke in this country. I don't know if it's the same in the States, and the bands will say that it's from Spinal Tap, really. The bands will say they're big in Japan, right?
Yeah.
So they have no success anywhere else.
Right.
Big in Japan.
Yep.
And then we got our royalty statement through, and we had some royalties from Japan. And John got, it's like, "Oh look, we got some royalties from Japan," and it was like $4 or something. So like, we cracked the Japanese market.
Yeah.
And we just joked about how we're not so big in Japan. And so that's where that song comes from. And then I thought, obviously, I got to get some Japanese people involved. So I got this two friends of a friend
Sure.
to record this phone conversation. And they're actually, I mean, I don't speak Japanese, but that bit at the beginning, they're talking about basically one of them saying, "Oh, have you heard of this band called her name?" She's like, "No." They're saying they're really famous. She's like, "I've never heard of them." She's like, check out this album, it's pretty good." "Oh, really? Okay, yeah." So that's basically what they're saying, to solve the mystery.
It's a great song. I really like that song. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The very last question.
Sure.
Kelly Ali.
Yes.
Beautiful. Sneaker Pimps.
Thank you.
How did you collaborate with her?
So she, I used to be a kind of pretend music journalist with a friend of mine. So we kind of wrote for this. We wrote for this magazine, a couple of magazines. We basically used it as an excuse to interview everyone that we liked. So I interviewed OMD.
Yeah.
And I interviewed people like Gary Newman and various people. But anyway, me and my best mate, a guy called Tim Riley, and he interviewed lots of people. One of the people he interviewed was Kelly Ali.
Mm-hmm.
He loved Sneaker Pimps, and they became friends. This was about 10 years ago, and she was actually around his place one time, and he was playing our album in the background. She was like, "What is this? This
Really?
is fantastic." Yeah. And he said, "Oh, it's this mate of mine, a band called Cobb and Her Name." He lent her the album. This is an album called Careful What You Wish For, which is our second album. And she absolutely loved it. And it's one of her favourite albums, which was incredibly flattering for us.
Sure.
And we became friends, and we were friends for a number of years. And then I kind of plucked up the courage once to say, "Oh, do you fancy singing on one of our albums?" She's like, "I'd love to." "You mad? I'd love to."
Really?
Which I wish I'd asked earlier. And so she started with our fifth album, Above Us Below. We sent her the kind of final mixes of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
We said, "Do what you like with them, you know." And we expected her to maybe do vocals on maybe 2 tracks or something, and she came back with vocals on 8 songs.
No kidding.
And all incredible. You know, she's a phenomenally talented musician in her own right, and her voice is a good match for mine. So a very deep voice. She's very soft, beautiful, angelic voice, haunting voice. That was amazing, and we actually co-wrote a song for that album as well. She did a song called Shake Hands with the Devil, which she wrote the lyrics and the tune melody for, so that's on YouTube on that album, Above Us Below. And it grew from there. So the next album, Another Landing, we said, "Final mixes, do you want to do some vocals?" She said, "Sure." Sent her all the tracks. She came back with vocals on about 8 songs for that album. Brilliant, amazing again. Blue Velvet Revisited soundtrack. Do you want to do some vocals on that? Sure, amazing. So there's a bit of, not much, but there's a bit of Kelly Ali on the Blue Velvet Revisited soundtrack. And on Air of the Dog, exactly the same thing. And of course, with When I Was a Girl, she's very prominent in all the video. She's in the video as well. So we've also worked on her album. So she did an album called Band of Angels, which was kind of a return to her doing the electronic stuff that she did with Sneaker Pimps, and we co-wrote a couple of songs on that. And she's just now finishing an album called Ghost Driver, which is a film and an album. And I star in the film. I'm one of the characters in the film. I play a jazz musician, so that's been a lot of fun doing the film with her. And we have written a couple of songs, or co-written a couple of songs for the album, which is coming out anytime. You can still pledge, it's on Pledge Music. People are into that kind of stuff, so I recommend you check it out. But we're really, really good friends. She's one of those people which, when we get extra musicians involved, I like them to just do their own thing. I don't like to direct them too much. Because the whole point of choosing those people is because they have a particular style and a talent that matches what we do. So with Kelly, you just off you go. You know, of course we do a bit of editing, and there's some bits we use.
Yeah, but you don't challenge her creativity.
Yeah, we use her creativity, and luckily it connects. You know, she connects with what we do. I mean, we've talked about a lot because she sings on probably 30 Cult and Her Name songs. We've talked about doing concerts together. You know, about doing the ones that she sings on. So we'll see. It takes a lot of work.
Well,
you know?
the collaboration is it's perfect.
Yeah.
And I've always loved her. I looked at her videos and things, and I've always loved her voice. And it's a perfect fit for you guys. It is a perfect fit.
It is a perfect fit, and we'll continue doing that with this album. The next album we're working on, we'll do that some more. And it's great that we can be on her albums as well. You know, there are a few of the tracks are actually what we call Kelly rejects, you know. So
Yeah.
when we've worked on her albums, we've sent various things to her, and she said, "Oh, I'm not really feeling this." We're like, fine, you know. We try not to let things go to waste. So there's quite a few Cotton and Name songs that started out as options for Kelly.
Yeah.
So yeah, particularly and ironically, there's Everything Lasts an Age, which is on Another Landing album, which has her doing some incredible vocals over the top, is one of those songs. So if you look that one up, Everything Lasts an Age, that started out as a Kelly Ali track. I kind of almost became a Kelly Ali track under our name because it's got a stamp, there's so much on it.
Yeah.
The kind of very Indian influenced vocals on that. So yeah.
No, I love it. I mean, I love playing it loud, and I like taking it in. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So to wrap this up, tell us what you have coming and where the listeners can find your stuff.
Sure. So, well, you can find us in all the usual places, you know, iTunes, Spotify. If you want to buy the CDs, if people remember those, you can buy those everywhere too. Particularly the last couple of albums. Some of the older albums are a bit harder to find, but if you go to our Bandcamp page, some of the older albums are there as well. You can buy those, and we're just setting up new distribution for that. We're just switching distributors for some of our older albums. So some of the older albums are not on iTunes at the moment, but they will be in a couple of weeks. But the most recent stuff is.
Okay.
It's too much long.
Plans, we're about halfway through the next album already, even though it's not been a year since we released the last one. We just keep going. But we need to stop and do a few more concerts. So we want to do a few more concerts, particularly in Europe. So we're working on that. We've got Kelly's album that's coming out very soon, which has got quite a lot of us on it. And we just keep on going. So just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, whatever you subscribe to us on YouTube, whatever your chosen channel is, and we'll keep you updated. But there's always something in the pipeline with us. We don't like to stand still. I think we're frightened of being forgotten.
Oh.
So we're always churning them out. So that's how we've managed to do 10 albums in 10 years. 8 albums in 10 years.
Well, continue to send me your music, and I'll play it. I love it. And if you ever make it to Chicago, if you ever play in Chicago, please let me know.
We'd love to.
Let me know, and I'll come out. So, no, this has been great. I was really looking forward to this, and I thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And we'll, of course, when you send me the edited video, we will share that everywhere and promote the session and all of that. So, really appreciate it.
And I'm going to take all that stuff about Ableton. I'll take all that stuff out. Don't worry about that.
Oh, you choose your show. You keep on whatever you want.
But I'll clean it up. I'll clean it up, and I'll let you know. I should have it done by before the week's end. So, Eric, it was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and I'll be in touch. And don't forget about THERUNNER.com. Tell all your fans they can hear your music. Now, let me ask you: are there any other stations that are playing your music as consistently as I am?
I wouldn't say as consistently as you. We have a couple of great supporters out there. You know, obviously you. We have a station called Radio Paradise, which is quite a well-known internet radio station. Yep. Yeah, which. It's strange because they're a big supporter of us, but for some reason, our most recent album, they've not taken to it. I don't know why.
Really?
It's a bit frustrating. But they still play the older stuff. There's a station in Mexico called Artifactor. There's a few that play us. There's another one, Radio Warwickshire in the UK. But it's great, you know. We can't do this without you, because how on earth are we going to reach people in Chicago and around the world unless we have people promoting our music? We're too busy making it to shout about it.
No, understood. No, listen. I appreciate it, and just send me what you have, and I'll keep playing it. Not a problem.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers to you as well, and have a good week. And thanks for calling in. Thank you. All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.